Welcome back to the CLSR, and I'm your host, the counselor. Today, we're going to be talking about how to complete that police report. I mean, if you're in need of filing a police report, you're going to need some details, some important details that are going to help you get through it. First of all, we do have to acknowledge that it is quite unnerving when you have to complete that report. Aside from the anxiety you may feel, you might have to understand that you could fill out the report. However, if you don't have vital information in that report, it's going nowhere. And they could just reject it or send it back to you because there's certain things that you don't understand. So I want to make sure that you're well prepared. The prepared mind always succeeds. So just remember, if you're not a police officer or a security guard and you don't know how to write up a detailed report, you're going to need to listen to this because a well written incident report gives a thorough account of what happened and sticks to the facts. A lot of you get emotion involved when it comes to completing these reports, and you start going off, you start giving all sorts of information, and before you know it, you done told a story based on your emotions. And that's one of the things that we do not want to do. We don't want to be telling stories based on emotions. So first of all, get that clear. I want the facts, right? I don't want to hear everything about how you felt about it or what you assumed about it or it's this in your eyes. And no, I don't want to hear all that. So we got to make sure that if you're trying to write a police report, right, you're going to have to put this report together and it's got to follow a certain format. So I'm going to help you on how you could develop this format to make sure that, you know what, it's not being rejected and you've covered the vital information that is required. It's not easy, but we're going to get into those feelings first of all. But first and foremost, let's talk about what you should know because, first of all, you got to follow some protocol. You got to get the correct forms from the department. Now, keep in mind, each police department has a different protocol in place for dealing with an incident and filing a report. You may be responsible for filling out a form issued by your department, or you may be asked to type or write up the report by hand. Try to do your write up using word processor software like Windows or Microsoft Word. It'll look much neater because some of us have some writing that we don't even understand. And if you do that, the one thing is you'll be able to use spell check to polish it up when you're finished. And you could actually take some time to think about it. If you write your report by hand, you're going to have to print clearly instead of using cursive. Try to print. And some of you might have problems with that. So if you have somebody in the family who's good at writing that you can trust, I strongly recommend that you get them if their writing is very legible. Okay, because there's nothing worse than putting in a report that only you understand. And that could be the excuse right there for rejecting it. I didn't understand it. I looked at it and then could you change the format? Could you do it again? And then you're going to get even more upset. So we got to start in the right place. So start the report as soon as possible. Don't try to delay. I know a lot of you may contemplate, but the quicker you get down to details, right? And I mean, when an incident happens, I want you to go right immediate to a place where you can write all the details down. You don't have to perfect it, but I want you to get down exactly what happened. Cover the 5 W's: when, where, who, what, and why in that order. Tell me, when did it happen? In the morning, afternoon? Where? Was it in the park? After dark? Who? Who was involved in the incident? The victims or the perpetrators? Right? What? What happened? Was it an assault, a robbery? And why did it occur? Based on your opinion, tell me what happened based on. So when, where, who, what, and why in that order. There's a reason why I'm saying it that way. Once you give it like that, you can tell a story and just follow that, right? Start the report as soon as possible, right after the incident. Reflect on what happened and jot down some notes about it. If possible, write your report the same day as the incident because waiting will make it harder to remember details. At the least, do your report right up within the first 24 hours after the incident. If you can't write the report on the day that the incident happened, record some notes about what happened to help you when you do the write-up report. If you have a cell phone, which most of you have a cell phone, do a recording. If you got a long ways to go and you're going to work and something happened, put the record on that phone. You can email it to yourself later. Save it and forward it to your Gmail account or whatever account that you have. You can go right into the details, everything that you remember, and this will actually help you. If you're not a writer, record it on your phone immediately or borrow a phone to do that. The sooner you get down those details, the better off you're going to be, especially when you got to write up a real report. And I do want you to focus on the facts. Your form may have blank spaces for you to fill out with information about the incident. Fill in these spaces or include the following information that I'm going to tell you. And I'm going to tell you that you have to give the time, the date, location of the incident, and I want you to be very specific, right? Tell me the exact street. Don't give me no 2 street. Give me the exact street. All right? Not the whereabouts or where you think what. Give me the exact street. Your name and your ID number, right? Give them your name for sure. Names of officers who were present during the incident. Some of you, I know it's not going to be easy because some of the officers don't want to give the information or they try to intimidate you. Take a photo. There's nothing wrong with taking a photo in public. Take a photo of there. If they don't want to give you the badge number, take a picture of it. Take a picture of the car with the plates. If you're worried about getting up close and personal, or if they're giving you a hard time, right? Or get a friend to do it. While you talk to them, get a friend to take the picture and record while you're doing it. You know, having to talk. If you're requesting it, have a friend record that you're requesting it and you're getting denied. See, this is the public that's supposed to be protecting you. Include a line about the nature of the incident. Describe what brought you to the scene of the incident in the first place. If you got a call, describe the call and note what time you received it. Write an objective sentence describing what happened. Don't write what you think might have happened. Stick to the facts and be objective. Like a report might say on 8/23/10 at approximately 23:40, officer was assigned to 17th district, right? And give the responsible vehicle. Officer was notified via radio by central dispatch. Like that is all jargon for those police officers and security guards. And no, stick to the format I told you. Give me the 5 W's. You don't need to go into all that military time trying to get it all right. Don't try to be a police officer. Too many of you want to be what you're not. Be yourself. And if you need some help, get it. But don't try to write all code. You know what I mean? Be objective. Stick to the format I'm telling you and keep it moving. But make sure you get the pertinent details. I want you to describe, most importantly, what happened. Write in the first person. Include a detailed chronological narrative of what happened when you reported to the scene and tell a story from your perspective. And I'm telling you, people, use I statements to explain the who, what, where, when, and why of the incident. Like, upon arrival in the incident, yeah, I observed a person, like a 40-year-old white male known as Johnny Doe, screaming and yelling at a 35-year-old female approximately, right, on Maple Street. And I saw them fist fighting. And I tried to intervene and got punched. And then I decided to back off and call the authorities, and you know what? And I realized that I was not making the situation better. So keep the details very specific, and that's it. Don't go into anything else. Keep it concrete. All right. So if you can, and some of you are more elaborate, try to include rich detail in your report. If possible, make sure to include direct quotes from witnesses and other people involved in the incident. Right? Include an accurate description of your own role in the course of what happened. If you had to use physical force to detain someone, don't gloss over it. Report how you handled the situation and its aftermath. So if you had to break somebody up, say it. You know what I mean? Describe. Oh, I was a mediator, actually. That was my role. and I had to restrain this person or take the weapon from them because they were getting aggressive and coming at such and such, this person, right? So be specific, but if you can, give very specific details on what happened, right? And if you could, some of you might have to use diagrams. Draw a picture or diagram in your report if it's difficult to explain certain information in your words. You may also want to use a picture or diagram to show what the scene looked like, right, around the incident, right? Police officers have to write their own reports, especially when it comes to auto incidents, maybe crime, whatever. But sometimes they'll draw a picture to get you and the audience a clear indication of what happened. You can do the same. Be very descriptive, but also you can provide a picture of what happened. And that right there will give people a clear indication. You can provide that and add that to your report if necessary. So if you got to go to court to explain it, you could easily, recreate the incident with your drawings or your art. Or if you're a person that's got a hearing disability, or if you can't speak about it, right? You have some verbal difficulties or deficiencies, you might have to draw out. Make a thorough report, write as much as possible, and include as many details as you can remember. Don't leave room for people reading the report to interpret something the wrong way. Don't worry about your report being too long or wordy. The important thing is to report a complete picture of what happened. Instead of saying, when I arrived, his face was red, you could say, when I arrived, he was yelling, out of breath, his face was red, and he seemed angry, right? That's a good description right there. It's quite useful because it can tell you a lot more than you care to believe. Include accurate details and leave out the rest. If you did not see something that happened, make sure that you don't report that you did. If a witness tells you something that you did not see, whatever the witness says is considered hearsay. Hearsay is like something that you hear that you cannot substantiate or prove by personal knowledge. Report hearsay as hearsay, not as something you personally saw. Some people try to do that, overcompensate, and they're telling things that happened that they didn't actually witness, and then they get caught up. Don't want you to worry about that, but just try to be as genuine as possible. Even though it is hearsay, make sure to write down what each individual at the scene said to you. It may be important. Even if he or she is lying, include any information about the witness, the demeanor, in case what he or she told you becomes very controversial later on. And I do want you to use clear language, okay? Don't use flowery street language, confusing language, trying to come up with all these different acronyms as if you're talking to somebody who's texting all the time. We're not about that. All right? We want to hear it in the plain language. Okay? If you need an interpreter, bring one with you. Okay? Don't try to struggle through anything. Be who you are culturally. If you speak a different language and English isn't your first, say, I need an interpreter, and vice versa. Right? It depends where you're at, what country you're in. Don't assume everything's English. You could be anywhere around the world. If the major or the principal language in that country is not yours, make sure you get an interpreter and that they are translating the way that they're supposed to, right? Don't use language that's not appropriate, like street language. A lot of young people have a tendency to, cut through the logistics and start using street language to get to the point. I get that, but I'm saying keep it as simple as possible, right? Use the person's name who's involved when possible. Don't be saying Mighty Mike, like that could be someone's nickname. If their name's really Ted, use Ted. We all have nicknames. It's a beautiful thing, but it's hard to track for people when it comes to reporting. Oh, my friend Mighty Mike and Dante or Lily, like, we don't want to really do that. We want to make sure we got their names. I know some of you be like, well, that's all I know about. No. You know what the real name is. If you don't, you should be finding out before you file a report. Don't start writing down things that people are going to be second guessing and have to throw it away because they're just too confused. Make sure that you reference people with proper names, right? And if you do use abbreviations, spell it out. Say, If you're saying, trying to be someone that's saying things like person of interest, say person of interest, not POI, right? Things like that confuse people. Say what it is. You're not an officer, so say what you mean. Okay? And remember, be honest. Forget about it. The thing about it is you're going to have to be honest when you start doing reports. Some of you get emotionally charged and you start knowing that things might not go in your favor if you report it this way, and then you start making all these assumptions in your head that if you say this, people are going to think this. Oh, you're going to come up with a lot of different scenarios in your mind. I'm telling you, cut the crap. Keep it honest, because an honest story is easy to remember. You start doing all that crying and lying, you're going to forget. And they're going to catch you up. And you're going to be embarrassed. And you're not going to be believed. And even if what happened is true and you embellish any part of that story, people are going to look at you and you're going to lack credibility. So even if you're not proud of how you handled the situation, it's critical that you write an honest account. If you write something untrue, it may end up surfacing later, right? Putting your job in jeopardy, causing problems for the people who are involved in the incident. It could hurt you or your community or your family, so you do not want to lie. And that's where you really take the time to think, should I be making this report? If I am really involved in it and I know I got to do it, I got to do it honestly. If I can't do it honestly, I should not be saying anything. Just try to preserve your integrity, right? And represent the truth. It's so hard for people to tell the truth today. They got all these ulterior motives. You don't want to be one of those. It's just too hard. Telling lies too much. You do eventually get caught up. Everybody who tells lies gets caught up. It's just when. Some get away with it so long, they don't even know that they're lying. They believe the stuff that comes out of their mouth so much that nobody else believes it, but they're convinced. And they get so good at convincing themselves that they get to be an expert at lying. Although their credibility shot, people just dismiss them as lying. And right there, once you get someone who consistently lies, it's like the boy who cried wolf. Nobody wants to believe you. Never mind be around you. And then when you are telling something that's legit, they're like, you lied before. Your credibility is no good here. You understand? So keep it honest. And when you do the report, I want you to look at your report, read it. You're going to have to edit. You're going to have to go through and sharpen it up and keep it simple, keep it concrete, to the point. Check your report for accuracy. That's what you're going to have to do. Double check all of the facts, including spellings of names, dates, times, addresses, license plate numbers, and so on. Make sure you don't leave out any information that should have been included. Look for obvious gaps in the narrative that might need to be filled in. If you forget to include one's party's reasons why the argument started, then that's a gap, right? So you got to fill that in. So that's why you go over it. I can't even emphasize people going through their work again and doing a little bit of edit, making changes, making it concrete, getting through some of that spelling. It's important, right? Spelling, grammar, sentence structure, you might not be the best at it, okay, but get it down. You know what I mean? Or get some help. Have somebody that you can trust look over it before you put it in there. Proofread your report. Read through your report one more time to make sure it's easy to understand. Check it for typos, spelling errors, and grammar errors that might make the report confusing. Remove any words, right, that could seem subjective, like words describing feelings and emotions. Like if you included phrases that start with I feel or I believe, then you would want to remove these to eliminate any bias in your report. It appears is a good one, right? And one good way to protect yourself is by using the word appears. They love that word in court because you're not saying in absolutes, but you're saying it appears. Like the man who punched the store owner in the face appears to have an issue with anger. So that doesn't mean it's absolute and you're saying that the guy has an anger issue. It's basically giving it could be based on this from what I saw. And it's very protective language, the appears. So try to use that it appears when you're not really sure of the reasoning behind some of the action taken at the scene or something that you witnessed. It's okay to use that. And once you've done all your due diligence, got your facts down, got the format down, then I think it's really time to submit your incident report. Find out the name of the person or department to whom your report must be sent. Or if you're handing it in, if you can submit your incident report in person, do that. Make sure you're available to answer any further questions if you're approached, and provide clarification when needed or as needed. If you have to mail or email your report, follow up with a phone call within a 10-day period. So do this to make sure that your report is received. Okay, and I strongly recommend that we make copies. If you're going to submit something, make sure you have an electronic copy and a hard copy. If you submit in person, try to find an email of the department head or something that you can find. Sometimes you could just call in and say, I need the email for this department, and they might give you someone in the department with an email, or it might be listed online. It's a good thing to do, because if you hand it in, somebody could easily throw it away. Try to back it up with like an electronic email, so when the person that you might refer to, and get a file number, like a case file number. So if you're handing in a report based on an incident that happened, ask the officers or the division, okay, there's an incident that occurred. There's a case number that you may have on file. Can you give me the case number for that incident that happened on this day with this officer involved? They'll give you the case number. It's public knowledge and it's your right. If they fail to do that, speak to the sergeant or the person in charge and say, I got an incident report. I want to file it properly. I need a case number. Any other reasoning for not giving it to me is not acceptable. Do you understand? So make sure you got it. Because you don't want to be handing in documents where they could come at you and go, well, we didn't know what to do with it. You didn't have the proper case number. So go after the case number, right? And email it so that if you see that person or you call in, you could say, listen, I gave in the report, or we don't have it. Well, yes, you do, because I emailed you and I got a copy of the email. And I CC'd, right? Try to do more than one thing. Like when you send it to like the person in charge of the case, you might have to CC their supervisor. See, right there, they might be slick because they might say, oh, I didn't get the report. But if the supervisor, if you CC it in the email where you put the other person's name as well, it'll go to that person you intended it to, and the CC will be another additional person in that same email, and they'll get a copy as well. That's a little strategy that you use. Don't just give it to someone and trust them. And just consider that you might be putting in a police complaint. And you know they're not going to like that, right? Some might take it. You never know. They might be cool, take it and bunch it up. So that's why you got to cover yourself. And some might pretend they're going to take it. Most of them are going to take it, okay? Because that's just the way it is. But I'm saying, you know what? There's going to be a little pushback, especially if you get questioned. So if you got to hand it in, hi, what is it? Oh, this is a complaint on the police. Oh, well, such and such is not, I don't care. I need to make sure that I hand this in and somebody gets a copy. You know what I mean? And like I said, if they don't want to sign a paper saying it's been submitted, then you could videotape them getting it, so that if it comes to court, they can't say, well, you didn't give it to me. I don't know what you're talking about. I was in the field doing this. They know you weren't, because you're on this video and I'm showing you, I'm submitting it. So make sure you have documentation. You can never really back yourself up, because too many people depend on the word of mouth. They do. And I like to take people at their word, just like everybody. I like to feel that everybody has the good up and up. But if you are being looked at under suspicions, you might not be as up and up as you should be. You know, if somebody's pointing a finger at you, you might have this ulterior motive not to be as upfront as you need to be, right? We're only human people, so we got to keep that into account. It doesn't hurt to protect yourself, that's all. Stop taking word of mouth. See, there's too many people out there taking word of mouth. It doesn't happen. You need to know the legislation. Word of mouth contracts and agreements, they only go up to a certain amount. And this goes back to legislation and laws in the U.S., even back to the 1700s, where when you do a verbal agreement, it's only good for up to a certain amount. So remember, even when it comes to testifying, that it's only good if you can have some proof, right? Then use that. But if somebody's making a verbal agreement, just take it with a grain of salt. Always back yourself up. Okay? If you're sending a letter, spend a couple extra dollars to register it, so that if somebody goes to court and says you didn't send it, we don't know, I got proof right here, I sent it to you. You understand? It just breaks down some communication, or shall I say miscommunication. And you know what? You're looking out for yourself. These are just natural things to do. So when you submit your point, understand that there may be some incidents where you might get a little bit of pushback. I didn't tell you to be there arguing. I didn't tell you there, because sometimes if they ask, well, why are you submitting this? Well, that's not your business, and I'm not going to get into it. You don't need to be testy like that. I have a right to. Here it is. Do you understand? No, you might get some. Don't be reactive. Don't be one of those people that wants to engage in that foolishness. You're not going to get anywhere. Police are enforcers. Are all police bad? No, I'm not saying that at all. But there are some out there that, they're dealing with a lot, right? And you know what? Sometimes they get formed opinions, right? And that's what we're going to talk about too, because the counselor wants to talk about some of the incidents that are going on out there. They do have a tough job, a lot of them, and there ain't no excuses for bad behavior for that. You chose the profession. Nobody makes you do it. And if you are doing it, you should be held accountable. You should be held accountable above most people, because you got the enforcement on your side, right? So what I'm saying too, I know there are good officers out there, don't get me wrong, but there's some out there that need some help and support, seeing things the way they should be. And not everyone's meant to be an officer, just like not everyone's meant to be a teacher, right? Or a lawyer, or a judge, or a doctor. If we're being real with each other, these are professions that are protected a lot of the times. You get an incident with a teacher or a police officer, you know what I mean, and they're doing something they ain't supposed to be doing, a lot of them get transferred out. Now, there are some, and I'll say the teaching profession is a lot tougher on a lot of people than you care to believe. Teachers, I'm serious, they got the blue book, especially over here. If you're a teacher in Canada and you do something inappropriate, and I mean, sometimes it could be just like yelling at a student, you're going in the blue book. And then you got a board that's really coming down on you. There's no exceptions. And you know what? You're out of a job. And I'm not joking. But if you're a doctor and you're doing inappropriate things, and examining more than you should be examining, right? Or you're getting in them rooms without a second witness, or, you're just taking advantage of a client because you're in a very powerful position. If you're one of those doctors, I'm telling you right now, it's not easy to get them out of the position if they're doing it. It's not. They're very protected. So you got to make sure that you cover yourself. Now, when it comes to incidents like that, you don't try to do no reports. If you got to go up against those ones that are protected in a lot of cases, you might have to get some legal backup. You might have to go out there and get yourself a lawyer in an extreme where you got to take some action where somebody's... If I'm talking about an incident or something happened to you, you might ultimately have to get a lawyer, but put in a complaint, let them know that you're coming their way, and let them know that there's going to be some accountability and responsibility. And I'm telling you right now, the more voices that you have, the better it is for you. We don't have to be alone, but what we need to do is understand that it takes some work, and these are barriers that you're going to have to hurdle, and you can do it with support. And I'm just telling you, there are certain professions that are more protected than others, so it's going to take a lot more work. And you got to get some people who are real advocates out there. Lawyers, community members, not very biased individuals, but ones who are real advocates. Do you understand? Ones that are really going to support you. Okay, ones who have experience in that area. Don't just go and get your Uncle June who thinks that they're a jailhouse lawyer. I can't even tell you how many jailhouse lawyers I've heard trying to spit the law. You know what I mean? A bunch of them. Thinking they know as much as lawyers. I don't know. I guess it's the psychology once you put them inside. A lot of them think they know something about being lawyers. I know friends of mine who are lawyers, and they're just like, You can't tell that fool anything. They gave themselves 15 years because they knew better than me. See, you don't want to kick yourself in the foot, but sometimes you got to let them do their job, but you got to have your say. You know what I mean? If you got a lawyer that's not doing what you want to do, don't sit up there arguing trying to push the issue. Get another lawyer. Doesn't sound easy, but it's possible. Get a different lawyer. I've had to do that before. I had a lawyer that didn't listen, right? And I knew my butt was fried. So what I did was I made sure I got me another lawyer that could listen. And I wasn't happy. I had the power. A lot of times we don't feel we have the power because we're on the other end of that stick, that victim stick, right? So we're feeling from, oh, you know what? We got to settle for this, or we got to deal. Oh, I did something, and you know what? I could get this. So you get scared. Watch the fear. So what I'm saying, we could chat about this all day long, but I want to let you know, depending on the situation, if you are going to fill out a report, I strongly suggest you follow a certain format. You do a review of your paper. If you have to get somebody else to review it, keep it concrete. Don't over embellish. Don't be too emotional. Get to the point. Let them know. Make sure you get the number, right? Like an incident number, or make sure you back yourself up. Make sure you do a check-in once you put it in. Don't wait for 3 months waiting for them to get back to you. Oh, you know what? Oh, wow, we don't have anything on file. That's because you waited 3 or 4 months trusting that somebody. You heard that term, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. You don't leave it in somebody else's hands too long. You can't do that. Just like the report. The longer you leave it, the less you remember. So remember, that's the same. Out of sight, out of mind, especially when you got to put something in, like an important document. You follow that up. Don't be waiting no 2 or 3 weeks. Put it in last week. Do you know about it? Check a week later. Hi, I submitted this incident report. Could you tell me what's going on? Can I get an update? Well, it's still in our system. Who am I speaking to? Oh, I'm Officer Riley. Officer Riley, what's your badge number? Okay, so then when you call a week later, you can say, well, I spoke to Officer Riley, and they said it's still in the system. So then if you have to go and talk about it in the court, you can tell the court, listen, I done spoke to Riley, Shaniqua, you know what I mean, Robertson, and you know what I mean? And you got all your stuff backed up. And you're telling them, no, somebody's playing some ghetto games up in here. I'm not about that. And that's what you do. That's how you protect yourself. And if you're dealing with the language out there, this is just the last point I want to put. When you're dealing with the courts and the police, remember this. We speak a certain language, and the lawyers speak a different language. So a lot of you who want to represent yourself, that's great. However, in the end, a lot of times you shoot yourself in the foot. So I'm telling you, they speak a different language, and there's a reason why they speak a different language. Just like in these contracts with these big box companies and these corporations, they're writing all this complex fine print language for us not to really understand because they don't want you to understand it because they're trying to take advantage. And the reason why the lawyers are doing all that language is because it's not supposed to be in layman's terms, right? Or you wouldn't need us. Man, I'm speaking some gospel here. I want to say thank you to all my listeners, and I want you to be like the wise old bird. All right? And remember, we got to care about each other, support each other. What you don't know, ask. You don't got to know everything. If you don't know something, ask. Right? Put that ego aside. Right? Get somebody on your side. But you can't do it if your ego, Mr. and Mrs. Know-It-All. All right? Ask for some help. All right, there are people out there, and there's great legal aid lawyers. If you don't have a whole lot of money, there's ones that do it because they know the system needs some work. What system does not? Every system out there needs some work. But let's get people who are committed. Talk to some friends and family who've experienced it. They might have somebody who's good that'll be on your side. I'm not giving the impression that the whole world's bad. I actually think there's a lot of beautiful things in the world. But I mean, we got to protect ourselves and protect each other from those who are less than truthful. Okay? So take care of yourself, people.